Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 20. That's right, episode 20. It's a huge milestone in the podcast world. Most podcasts fade out by then, but we're not going anywhere. I've got David Skinner with me, industrial real estate broker and former roommate of mine. He's going to tell all you hustlers, don't have a side hustle. Worst advice ever. We'll be right back. All right, so round two of remote conversations, which I'm super excited about. I'm pumped up. And I have not just anyone, I have the David Skinner all the way over in the Shire hanging out. You're in the Boston area, right, man?
Yeah, right outside.
Yeah. So David and I were not new acquaintances. We go back. We were actually roommates once upon a time. David's a fantastic musician. He's found himself in the real estate world now and crushing it. And it's really, really cool. So I'm personally pumped to have David on the show. David, welcome.
Dude, it is so good to see you.
And we're drinking coffee. Well, I'm drinking coffee. I don't know what you're drinking, but what are you drinking?
Dude, it is not coffee. It is some sort of sleepy time tea.
That's bad, man. I hope you don't put our listeners.
No, trust me, it won't happen. It takes about 3 hours for tea, so we're good. We're good, dude.
Awesome. Well, that's great, man. So David, I know you well, which is fun for me, but I'm going to assume, aside from folks that you shared this with, a lot of folks have no idea who you are. They're like, well, why should I even care about David Skinner, right? Just give a little context, man. Like, who are you? Where do you come from? What do you love to do? What are you about? Who is David?
Yeah. So I was born in South Carolina, lived there for a couple of years, moved up to Massachusetts for a couple of years, moved up to New Hampshire in high school age. My parents, probably I'm most closely identify with New Hampshire. Went to college in Minneapolis, where I was fortunate enough to make your acquaintance.
There we go.
And then stayed out there for a couple. Went to school in Minneapolis for 4 years for biblical studies. And then spent 3 years selling wooden pallets, which I didn't know was a job until I started doing it.
Or a market, right?
That's right. I didn't know anyone did that. So that was quite a pivot from what I thought I was going to be doing in college to working afterwards. And then came back to, more or less be around my family. My brother was in college and my other brother was wrapping up college. So came back to Boston 3 years after doing the pallet thing. So I've now been back here for coming up on 3 years now. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Coming up on 10 years out of high school, which is so weird, dude. We're getting so old.
You're getting old. Yeah, speak for yourself. So I mentioned before you're a musician, right? You play several different things. We first met and when you were hacking on the cello. You still played?
That's right. Yeah. No, not really.
No.
Not really. It was, I still have the cello. I still sort of play it, but it was more of a previous life kind of thing. It's just not that really, not really conducive to kind of where the trajectory of my life is going right now. I love music still play, serve a church, but I don't really play. I picked up electric guitar actually.
Yeah, you did.
Got the pedal board and the whole thing. So I'm still working it a little bit, but cello's definitely play at the Christmas Eve service, and that's about it.
There you go. That's awesome. So cello, electric guitar, acoustic, piano. You sing.
Yeah, pretty much everything except drums. So
yeah, that's awesome. So if you're looking to
upright bass.
And really, a lot of people probably don't know this, but David has a couple of talented brothers as well. And you guys actually rivaled the Jonas Brothers for a while as far as popularity with the 13 to 17.
I don't know who said rivaled. I didn't know it was a competition. I did not know it was a competition.
Yeah, you blew them out of the water. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, no, we have
awesome.
fun. It's fun now. We all live in the same city. We can make music again, which is the communal aspect of music to me is the most fulfilling part. It's way better than performing. It's better than, and it's fun to make music with people.
Yeah. It's such a blast. And it can be tough in this day and age to make a living doing music, right? And you experienced that, which is probably why you decided to not hang up the cello, but you realized maybe it wasn't going to be how you were going to pay the bills or build wealth.
Yeah, it's a young man's game. I think a lot of people have kind of grand ideas, and I would never be the person to say that someone couldn't be successful making a career out of music, because there's actually a couple of guys actually in Minneapolis that I was very surprised. They loved doing it. You could tell they were just so thirsty for for a following, and they were like mediocre in my opinion. But then they just kept at it, and now like a couple of guys, they like are doing really, really well. They're touring the Midwest, and I'm like not playing small venues. So
it's awesome.
Some people, I mean, you got to know how to work it. It's definitely an industry that I had zero desire to do, but you can do it. I mean, you can do it. Let it never be said I told someone they couldn't do something and then they did it.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I think, technology is kind of the great equalizer in our day and age. Like, you wouldn't have to tour to become and to make actually a living doing music. It's kind of crazy, some of the things that you see out there. But that said, it's not necessarily easy. And it comes down to a lot of, like you said, sales or relationships, and then also marketing, knowing how to actually strategically get out your stuff. Doesn't matter how great you are, how good your songs are. If no one knows about it, then what the heck, But man, for you, so are you a single guy? Are you dating anyone? Where are you at with that? Are you married?
I am currently unmarried.
Okay. Currently unmarried.
That's right.
We'll leave it at that. Currently unmarried.
Working on it. We're working on it.
Now accepting applications.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know. This is before my time, and I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but I used to have a t-shirt.
But you're going to, and I can't wait to hear what you're about to say.
Yeah, I know. Well, I used to have a t-shirt. I think I got it from maybe American Eagle, hot pink. And it said in like these big block, like white letters, models wanted. And my buddy Rob Morgan and I had the same t-shirt, uncoordinated. And we thought we were the coolest thing our freshman year in college, because we were walking around with this hot pink t-shirt on that said models wanted. We thought we were the coolest thing. Wow.
I mean, you were, in fact, good, because you in fact were.
Glad we're done with that story, right? But yeah. So man,
next question.
Yeah, next question. Definitely not editing that one out.
This is not. Yeah, we could. That's a rabbit hole. We're not going down.
So talk to me, man, about what you're doing now in industrial real estate. What's kind of the name of the game? How'd you get into it? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the pallet company was an incredible experience. It was a sales job that was no commission. It was all salary, which is kind of odd, but they gave me a ton of flexibility as far as they basically let me drive wherever I wanted, work on whatever projects I wanted. And as long as I was like doing stuff, they were giving me an opportunity. And so I thought my whole goal selling pallets was not to get rich selling pallets, but I was like, well, if I want to be in business for a while, my goal was to go to seminary and then be a pastor somewhere in New England. But it just seemed really clear that wasn't the next step at that time coming out of college. So the door at the pallet company seemed pretty open. And so working with really great people who I trusted with my life, and it was not a lot of money, but I was just very grateful for the opportunity that someone would believe in me enough to make me a job offer that I really didn't deserve. I had zero experience. And looking back now, in my first year, I was making $32,000 a year, which I thought was, plus mileage reimbursements, which I probably made more money on mileage reimbursements than I did in my salary. But
that was strategic, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. No, I always would call on the companies that were 300 miles away, and I'd be like, "Oh man, I just made $200 a week in my salary and $1,000 in gas reimbursement."
There's this great company in Texas. I gotta go.
That's right. They need 5 pallets. No, I kind of did that at sometimes, but really, I read a ton of books, and I was just constantly thinking, how can I become the best pallet salesman I can possibly become, because I figured sales is sales is sales no matter where you are. And so I just wanted to take every chance I could I had the flexibility. They basically were okay with me working like 6 hours a day, which I worked way more than that, but I didn't really get rewarded at all. I mean, there was no bonus, no incentive at all. So I just spent time. I read a ton of books. I just made a ton of cold calls, and I just got to know how to handle clients, good clients, difficult clients. Figured out what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, figured out that there are different types of sales, that there are different strengths of salespeople, and that it's okay if you're one and not another one. There are gatherers, there are hunters, and that's totally okay if you're not the other one, and that's totally fine. So then just figure out what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and then find however you can maximize. Just think about we are only given so much time, and so how can we steward the time that we have as faithfully as we can? So if you're gonna be in sales and you find what you're good at, then figure out how you can, if you're going to work 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, whatever you want to do, what can you do to maximize those 10 hours? I mean, so if it's account management and you're going to be the best account manager of all time, then find a place that incentivizes you to do that. If you're going to be the best cold caller of all time, find the place that incentivizes you to do that. So these are a lot of things I had no idea about before I did pallets, because I was definitely much more I enjoyed cold calls. I would like go out for fun. Like if I had a bad day, I'd go out and make cold calls because it was like energizing. But then there was the other guy that I worked with. It was kind of like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I was Tweedledum. He was Tweedledee. And
not to mention any names.
Well, if he's listening. Well, Charlie, I love you. He was definitely much more of an account manager, and he was just very adept at maintaining just long, like 20 plus year relationships. Like he was probably, I think in his 50s, but I mean, he had some pretty big accounts that, I mean, he would get shopped all the time, and he was a higher price, and people would stick with him because he was a good guy. And I learned a lot from that, and I learned that was not my skill set. And I also learned that that's totally fine. I think it's easy to kind of like demonize. I think our natural instinct is to like demonize what's not our strength, which is just, or kind of put it down. It's just like, that's just totally inappropriate way to look at the world, I think. So I learned a lot of those things. You always pay for your education one way or the other. And I paid for my education by basically not getting paid much to sell pallets for 3 years. So I kind of was like subsistence farming for 3 years, learning the tricks of the trade. And it was I think it was really effective. I think I know for a fact I learned more in 3 years selling pallets than most people, do in, 10 years, making 3 times what I made in those 3 years, just because I had a lot. I mean, I could have completely wasted the time. I'm grateful to God that I, for whatever reason, had the drive to, I didn't want to waste it. I didn't want to waste that time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Then how I got here was, I did realize that after 3 years, I was kind of like, I was hitting a stride, and I was like, you know what, I can't really go any further here. There was only so much non-commission sales you can do, especially when you were at the point where I was confident I could pretty much, I was really confident what I was doing, but I wasn't really incentivized for the abilities that I was growing. And so I thought, you know what, I want to take a risk on myself, and I'd rather take a risk on myself failing or succeeding, rather than taking a risk on the idea that the company was going to give me a nice raise for the next year. Mm-hmm. So I, between that and wanting to live closer to my family, had an opportunity completely out of the blue. Guy messaged me on Facebook, was like, hey, you want to get into real estate? It was during the Trump election. And I was like, I didn't know much about it. I was like, oh, wow, Trump's in real estate. Seems like he's doing something right. So I read Art of the Deal, and I was like, this seems like an interesting career path. So,
hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
I didn't even know, I didn't know anything about, I was like, oh, he's in real estate, whatever that meant. And so I didn't know that he wasn't an agent. He's a developer. But the guys that I was talking, that just called me out of the blue, were they do, went to Wheaton College, had some mutual acquaintances, a lot of just shared values. They, a Christian company, which is honestly really weird, especially in this kind of corrupt business, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. There's a lot of corrupt people that will lie to your face and, use you and spit you out and the whole thing just to make an extra buck. But these guys seem very, reputable, good people. And it was a full commission position. And I thought, well, I've always been one to make decisions based on two things: emotions and extremes. So I was like, well, I feel like I'm tapped out here. And the most extreme way to change my situation is to go from full salary to full commission. That makes sense. So, so that's what I did. July 2017 was like 3 years to the dot that I started doing pallets, and then finished it up, and then coming up on 3 years now. So hasn't been a long time, but it's been a very active 3 years.
Well, man,
That's how I am where I am.
You're still swimming. How are things going for you?
Honestly, I'm almost swimming. There's so much work to be done that I'm like drowning nearly in work. So it is, it's a lot of right place, right time. The harder I work, the luckier I get, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I mean, it's like, I just also look and just say, like, I just believe it's the grace of God that has just opened a lot of doors that I can't explain, where there are clients and relationships that I've had that have just kind of seemingly been dropped out of the sky, literally. Mm-hmm. But there's been some, larger transactions that have been, grateful to be a part of, and have not been, I mean, they've been larger commissions. Yeah. And so I've just and I'm working with an incredible team of guys that have been in the business for 30 plus years. And so they are spending a lot of time investing in me. And so I want their investment to be worth it. And I mean, I think it is worth it. So
yeah, that's awesome. And just to brag on you, I mean, you recently closed a massive deal. And well, massive to me, I don't know, in your world, maybe it's not massive, but I mean, it was almost to the tune of like 4 million. Is that right?
It was 4.9. That one was 4.9.
Yeah, it's almost 5, which is huge, and that's awesome. And the article that I read, because you were in the news, my friend, the article that I read said that was, and actually, I'm not sure if it was a record-setting price or an abnormally high price for the type of deal, type of building, type of structure. Yeah, which is awesome, man. So congrats to you. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was a deal that started. It took probably from the first contact to the last contact, it was probably like 20 months.
Yeah.
So a long time.
That's so awesome, man. And it doesn't stop there. You've kind of, like even when you were, back in school and doing pallets, you had some hot, side hustles for music, doing wedding gigs, all that kind of stuff. But now you started a new side hustle and you're teaching folks just a bit about the commercial real estate world. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I don't really have it's not really a side hustle, I would say. It's, I mean, kind of just people talk about content marketing, where you're essentially trying to just provide people with free information to help. Mm-hmm. And I thought, how does that work? It's an antique industry, boutique and antique, where there are not many people doing it. Because it's really hard, and I tell people all the time to not get into it. It's like the biggest mistake of their lives to get into this business. I haven't even been doing it for 3 years, and I've already seen numerous. I could give you a list of people who have come and gone at our company and other companies just because it's very difficult. It's
are you talking commercial or industrial specifically, or just real estate in general?
Commercial real estate, yeah, just generally. So I mean, my thought was. It's an antique industry because if you think about it, if someone's going to own a large warehouse, 100,000 square foot warehouse, they're probably of financial means. And if they're of financial means, most likely they're not young. And if they're not young, they've probably been around a long time. And if they've been around a long time, they know everyone who's worth knowing. So it's really hard to break into a business for someone who's 26, 7, 8 years old, as I've been over the last few years. If you don't really, I mean, it's just a relationship business. So your time horizon's got to be 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So I put together just some videos and thought, well, if I do a small deal with a guy, let's say he's got a 100,000 foot warehouse, he's got a vacancy for 10,000 square feet. I do a small deal. I know he's got brokers calling him all the time. Hey, can I list your space? Can I list your space? But if I put him on, a mailing list once a month and I send him a video about, how to structure a lease, how to do a lease renewal, short 3-minute video. He's getting the email blast. I've got to keep coming out with content, 10 years worth of content once a month. So that's a lot of work. But the hope is over time, once a month he's seeing my stuff. And then, 6, 12, 24 months down the line, he's like, hey, so, and this has already happened. I mean, I've already gotten a call saying, hey, so yeah, I've great work on your videos and I've got this thing. Can you look into this? Or, it's just kind of a way to stay in someone's ear, but it's a very long time horizon, which can honestly is discouraging at times because it's like, it's a very much a so reap way later. But 3 years in, I've already seen that process happen, which is the encouraging part. But when you're in the seasons of sowing seed after seed, it seems like it's going nowhere. It can just feel kind of like, man, this is tough. But then you get 1, you get 2, you get 3, you're like, oh wow, this is not a waste of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the video stuff is, it's a lot of work, but it's just a huge investment that I'm not expecting really to see results for a long time, but yeah, it's fun and I enjoy doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's a few different things at that, right? So it's like you're communicating to the folks that you're hoping to serve, that you're growing in expertise, you know what you're talking about. You're hopefully providing value to them, maybe perspectives they haven't considered, even though they likely are very knowledgeable on things all across the board. You're establishing yourself from a market position as someone in the industry who's credible, trustworthy, professional, works hard, right? Is going above and beyond what other folks might be willing to do, to really show that, hey, you're committed and you're excited to make others successful in that regard. So I would seem, and that from giving away for free is awesome. And I've heard it said that you want to give more in use value than what you take in cash value. And this is one way that you can really express that, where you're giving so much more than what you're taking in that regard.
More in use value, like what the information you give them is just worth way more money than the money they spend.
Yeah. Think about like a book. You pay $10 for a book and you might get $1 million idea from that book, right? So that author give you so much more in use value than what you got in cash value. And there's ways that we can do that and in respect of our career. And it goes so much for building trust and rapport when we're giving more in use value than what we're taking in cash value, which is cool. That's awesome, man. So yeah, so we're super excited to hear. I love it. I love chatting with you. We were chatting off air how we were just, this conversation is fun. This isn't really for anyone else who's listening. This is just for us. We're just doing this for us. So.
Let's go, dude. Love it.
But talk to me, man. Like, so why? Like, why do you still get up every morning and work in an industry that you tell everyone else not to get into? What's that greater purpose, that pulse behind you, man? That long-term vision that keeps you doing what you do?
I don't know how religious I'm allowed to get on this show. I see my time as a complete gift. I didn't give it to myself. I didn't bring myself into this world. I don't give myself meaning. I don't give myself purpose. I'm here for a short period of time. And I mean, you see tragic situations all the time. People just die. And I look around and I think, you know what? I don't know how long I have. I have a finite amount of time, and I believe that it all comes from God. And I just want to be as faithful of a steward of my time as I can possibly be. And so what that looks like during the day is I got to get up at 4:30 because I got to work out, because if I don't take care of my body, I'm going to be useless during the day. And I'm not going to be ultimately able to handle all the stuff that comes at me throughout the day. Like, there are a lot of very stressful, the more responsibility that you reach for, the more stress you get, the more people attack you, malign you. I mean, I called a client today. He's like a client who hired me. He reamed me out for something I didn't do. And it's like, you know what? That happens. Like people, that's just going to happen. And I just see like, you know what? I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can because I only have so much time and I just want to maximize. I'm always thinking, how can I maximize every second of my day? Because I don't know how much time I have. And I'm grateful to be, I'm just great. I don't know if this is like cheesy or cliche. I'm just honestly, truthfully grateful that I have breath in my lungs because I see so many people that don't. And I have hope in my life. And so that's just, most people don't have that. And so if I can in some way invest in my clients, whether we're having deep conversations about life or we're just getting deals done, if something's not, I see my clients, I see my friends, I see my family, I see everything. It's just a long-term view. Like it's just a long-term view where I'm going to give. One thing my dad has always said that I think is some of the best business advice anyone could always say is if you're in a situation where you have the opportunity to give or take, give every single time. And if you feel like, oh, wow, I'm giving more than I really should be, that's probably good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think in the economy and in God's world and what he did in creating things, that comes back to you. It's hard to quantify. It's hard to prove. But I think when we give of ourselves, you plant and you water, you should expect the harvest, right? You can't always quantify the harvest.
Maybe, yeah, sure.
You should expect it, right? Which is a good thing. But that's awesome, man. Yeah. Don't make the most of the time that you have because you're not promised tomorrow, right? It's life is a precious gift, and yeah, that's awesome, man. Good. And your dad himself is an entrepreneur, right?
He runs a fleet of carpet cleaning service stations. That's right.
Yeah, and I know you've done work with him over the years, and probably learned a lot just about serving others,
how to treat people, how to have people yell at you and renegotiate pricing and everything, and just maintain just a servant heart throughout. And it sounds, I think maybe it sounds cheesy, but it's just like, dude, life is. I see some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I see so many unhappy, angry, angsty people. And I'm like, dude, it is not about the money. The funny thing is when you care about people and you think, you know what, I want to make as much as I can so I can pay my bills. And I'm going to work as hard as I can to help as many people as it sounds so cliche and cheesy and Zig Ziglar and the whole thing. But it's like, it is so true. The money will come, and it will come way more than you ever thought. It is like, I cannot express to you how true that is. Mm-hmm. If you're chasing dollar bills, you will fail every single time. I can't tell you. I could come up with a list of people that are like, oh yeah, he's trying to be a millionaire. He's like, that's why he's changed jobs 6 times in 4 months. And it's like, dude, he's spinning his wheels, dude.
Yeah.
His or her. Let me never be said that I was sexist.
Yeah, that's so true, man. That's good. Well, dude, let's get into it. So, right, wrong, and different. As you're looking back, on your life, your career to this date, you still, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, have many years ahead of you. But what are some things that you've done right, that have helped you to see some of the success that you're seeing today, et cetera, and hopefully more to come? What are some things you've done right?
I think working at the pallet company when I could have worked at a bunch of other places was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, where I just thought, you know what, if I invest my time now to learn and gain experiences, I will not regret that. And if I actually gain knowledge, understanding, and experience when I have the latitude and the safety net, really, because the salary, I knew it paid all my bills. And if I was just careful with my money, I would be fine. So I kind of couldn't mess up. I thought, you know what, if I do this for a few years, when someone's like, oh, you could make $10,000 more somewhere else. Like, you know what? I'm going to just invest here. I'm going to learn. I'm going to think 10, 15 years down the line. And then money will come eventually. I don't know where or how, from whence or how, but I'm confident that it will.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
And I just think, I mean, your 20s and 30s, I'm not even 30 yet, but I just hear enough older guys when the script is flipped and I'm in your position, and I'm asking people questions. I love asking my clients, my old clients that are 60, 70, 80 years old. And I'm asking them to spit like these same questions is like, they're like, yeah, spend your 20s and 30s just like gaining experience. Don't worry about money. Do not think about money. If you make decisions based on money, you are making a mistake. When you're this young, and I see it and I think I just spent a lot of time learning and growing and being willing to like not have a whole lot for a little while. And I'm really glad that I was content with my 2006 Malibu Max that had one door handle on it. I was fine with that. And it just enabled me to be in a position where I learned a ton I learned a ton.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that idea of valuing or choosing experience versus the money, especially when starting out, pays dividends later, right? And yeah, like you said, I mean, just that the temptation is like, oh, I can make 10,000 more, a year if I just went here. Yeah, but are you quantifying the investment that you're making and the education and how you're going to get paid there? And it's great if you can do that and still have that piece. But you're saying like what you did right was you really invested and just took the time to learn and experience, which meant starting a little bit lower, not getting that much, but that has turned out now currently to start paying off so much more in dividends and hopefully all the more as you grow.
Dude, I look at just how the trajectory of like, just even as income has changed. It's like, if I had made one of those decisions, like, yeah, the foolishness, the financial foolishness long-term would have been very great. And yeah, so, I mean, I think I see a lot of people, especially in like the Gary Vaynerchuk world, even like Grant Cardone, who I love. There's this like
Uncle G.
There's this attitude that's kind of underpinning all of it. This kind of like I see this. It is a little bit of a get rich quick, like, oh, I'm going to work and hustle and do everything 10x, and I'm going to then soon see the benefits of that. I'm not going to work on something if it seems like it's not going to pay out. Now, I think those guys would probably say that is foolish. And Gary Vee does, but I know he's definitely much more like, don't think about making money for 20 years. Like I've heard him say that, but it's just funny how there's this kind of like this frantic entrepreneur. It's like cool to be an entrepreneur right now. But I mean, I just see a lot of short-sighted people that are looking at dollar bills and they're not thinking about relationships with people. And they don't think about, hey, what happens when you tell someone you're going to do something, you kind of fudge it a little bit. 5 years later, they're not going to forget about you. Like they will remember you. It's so much more worth losing a deal in the short term, but to be remembered as a person who was straightforward, did what they said they were going to do, and was willing to give up a few bucks for the sake of integrity 10 years down the line when you're still around. Mm-hmm. I mean, I sound like I've been doing this forever. I've been doing it for 3 years. I've already seen this happen. And it's just like, yeah, it's just integrity and doing what you say and having a long-term view is just, it's the most important thing. I can't think of a more important thing than that. And also obviously working hard, but like I'm assuming that you're going to work hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard Gary Vee say the same thing. And even with Grant Cardone, Uncle G, who, by the way, Uncle G, I know you're listening. Let's get you on the show. Woo!
Let's go, dude. Let's go.
Tag him. I've heard him say he's never wanted to get rich quickly. He's always wanted to get rich slowly. And I think there's a Warren Buffett quote floating around, whether or not it's actually Warren Buffett, saying like, why doesn't, anyone, follow his advice? Because no one wants to get rich slowly. No one wants to play the long game.
Yeah, that's right.
And even, but I think there's also something to consider there. It's like, like when they say like get rich quickly, it doesn't mean that you can't take your, income from $50,000 to $100,000 in 1 year, right? But that's not getting rich. Like when you're talking about actually like wealth and actually building that, it's not. And so it's like, there's a difference there between like, hey, you should work really, really hard. And if you're wasting your time, let's say you're an inside sales role and you're wasting your time and you're making 32,000 or 40,000 a year, and you're not calling 100 people a day, or you're not really grinding hard. I mean, you're responsible for you and you can make a lot more, but you could double your income, but that's not rich. And that's what those guys aren't saying. And especially because they're wanting to teach more about so much more than the earned income. It's about creating passive income, which takes time. And you have to take that earned income, which the surplus of which, after all your expenses, that type of stuff, and eat rice and beans for a long while, drive the 2006 Impala or whatever it is to making the real sacrifices so you can carve out the excess so you can invest that into something that's going to create more passive streams. And that's a long game. You're not going to get rich quickly doing that. But you stick to that 20, 30 years, you're going to see the benefits of it. Right. And that's what you're saying. And I think the other thing that you did right too, like even as you were talking with taking the current position you are now, like it can be scary for folks because of the fear of failure. Right. But you took a 100% commission job and you said, but hey, for maybe the first time in my life, I'm going to have skin in the game. Right. I'm going to actually risk, I'm going to go all in on David Skinner. Right. And that's what you did.
It's kind of a burn the ships moment in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think folks need to come to that point in their life and they need to choose wisely about what they burn the ships over and which opportunity for. But you have
Here's the problem. Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
I was going to say, you have to come to a point in time where you're willing to do that. Right. So like if you always have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, if the ships are always there, the question is, are you really all into this opportunity? And like you said, if, folks are changing jobs 6 times in 4 months, are they really, if they're honest with themselves, were they really all in the first place? Or are they just saying, hey, this isn't, I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to go here, But I think burning the ships, you're all in. The only chance of survival is if you win. So you have to win. And I think the stakes are higher. And I think mentally, psychologically, people tend to work harder because they know that there's not another plan B. What were you going to say?
Yeah. I see so many times, like, I think based on some of the other questions you prepped me with, I think we may get there, but if your goal is to make money, it's not going to happen because, there's too much discouragement to push forward to say that's like, oh, I really want to buy a nice car. When people are yelling at you, cursing at you, telling you you're a failure. I don't know if anyone's ever said I'm a failure, but when the bigger thing is when you spend, when you're working 14-hour days for a year and a half and you have made $15,000, that's really discouraging. That's very like, wow, this is terrible. Why am I doing this? This is a complete waste of time. Have I gone insane? Like, what's wrong with me that I can't do this? Those are the moments when if money is your motivation and you just like want a nice car or you want to be rich or wealthy or whatever, you're going to quit because, I could work this hard to make $100,000. No way. It's like, so then you're going to quit. You're going to go do something else. But if you are thinking long-term and I feel like I'm a little bit tooting my horn, which I don't want to do. But my thought was, I don't have a business degree. I don't want to go to like finance school or whatever. So I wouldn't want to work in like Wall Street, but being in commercial real estate, you have the opportunity to probably make more than most people in most professions. If you become the most skilled at it over time. And I thought, it would make sense that I'm not going to make money for a few years doing this. However, I'm going to know more than anyone in a very specific sliver of information. And I'm just going to know more than anyone else. Even the guys that have been in my office, I'm going to know more about these 5 towns, industrial real estate in these 5 towns than anyone else. And you know what? I'll probably get a couple deals out of it. And then I'll slowly expand my knowledge base, but I'm going to know everything I can about like an infinitesimally small sliver. However, you can still be useful to those people. And if you're useful to those people over time, it's going to happen. And then you'll make deals happen and then you'll make money. But if you go in saying, oh, how can I make money as fast as I can? Or what's the best track to success. It's like, honestly, I love helping people. I love saying, wow, I know something about this tiny sliver that someone is going to need to know about once every 10 years of their lives. And then I just got to find those people that need my tiny sliver of information once every 10 years or whatever it is. And then it's incredibly satisfying. And it's like, oh, wow, I made $3,000 on that deal. Oh, wow, I made $30,000 on that deal. It's like, it's the same process. It's different amounts of money. So if you're looking at money, you're going to quit because it's just too hard.
Yeah. And you're not saying that money's not important, and you're not saying don't mind the money, but you're saying if that's what's driving you over all things, over against people, it's the wrong thing. If you focus on people, making them successful, the money will follow. Right. And that's sometimes hard because it makes us uncomfortable because we can't quantify that. Right. Where it's not promised to us,
you can't wrong
in that sense, but experientially, how many folks in life, how many books have been written, all that kind of stuff. If you put the people first, giving more than you take, it's coming back to you, right? The money will come. And then it's exactly what you just described. You described the process of going all in, right? You owned whatever niche you were, you're going to know more. You weren't going to allow yourself, you didn't give yourself a plan B. You didn't give yourself a ship to go set sail somewhere else to. You said, I'm going to go, I'm all in, I'm going to be successful. And here you are 3 years later, head above water, right? The journey is far from done, right? But it's exciting, man. And I think you're setting a really, really good example for so many folks. They might be 50 years old and they'd be like, dude, David's right. I'm learning from a guy half my age and this is huge. Or maybe they're starting out in what you said about, hey, you know what? Commercial real estate, you can make more than most people can in their professions. It's going to take work. If I play the long game, I'm a single person right now. My expenses are low. If I can keep them all the more, man, I can hash this out in 10 years. I could be doing pretty okay right now. In 30 years, I could be doing really, really well. And if you think about building something greater than just yourself, for others, for a legacy, for family, future generations, all that kind of stuff for your community, it's huge. It's amazing what you can do. But that's not a 1-year plan,
Dude, it's totally not a 1-year plan. And I mean, I think just the whole, like, what gets me out of bed in the morning is like, I want to maximize my life. Like, my life is not my own. My time is not for myself. I'm a steward of my time. I don't own my time. I don't own my money. So my thought is, well, if I'm going to work 12 hours a day, why work with the possibility of making 150,000 when I have the possibility of making way more than that? And I say possibility, just so you know, I don't make like way. But the possibility is there to make way more than that kind of money, which I think, 3-4 years ago, I'd have been like, oh, that's an insane amount of money. And it's like, dude, no, it's actually not. It's actually not in like the vast scheme of things. Yeah. However, I'm just trying to maximize. It's like, if there was something else that was a better use of time, I would do that. Yeah. But then I would still hope that I'd have the same approach where it's like, I just want to help people with a little sliver of information that I have. So, which does get you through the days where you get yelled at, cussed at, thrown under the bus, blamed, lied to, et cetera, and you're kind of like, why? I mean, I have had many moments where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
There's a better way. There's got to be an easier way. And I'm sure there is an easier way somewhere.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Being a barista, right?
That's easier, right?
Maybe. I don't know. Once upon a time, my friend, once upon a time, Kyle Schmitz was a barista. Just remember that.
Right. That's right.
Well, that's awesome, man. I hope really encouraging. And I hope, it's amazing. The power of our words. It could be that, someone will be listening to this and, one thing that you said, one sentence, 2 sentences, one word, will radically change the course of their lives forever. And that's awesome. And that's a huge part of why this podcast even exists. So thanks for sharing that. So let's move into the next thing. So same thing, to date, you're looking back over the course of your journey so far. And my guess is I'm going to roll the dice and say you probably didn't do everything right? You probably have some failures, some mistakes along the way. And so what's 1, 2, 3 things that kind of rise to the top of the mind as far as saying, man, if I could just have that one back, I would do this differently.
All right. I want to know who's next. Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
What are some failures that come to the top of mind for you, man?
I would say generally not being all in. That's not a specific instance. I see so many people, and again, I could come up with a list of people that are doing 6 things. They could be incredible at all of them, but they're very mediocre at all of them. Mm-hmm. And they will continue to be mediocre as long as they don't focus on one thing. I've had a bunch of hobbies my whole life. I've tried to be a musician, tried to I had that. You remember that cello channel? Did you ever see any of that? I did a bunch of cello videos,
yeah.
They were covers great. And stuff.
Yeah, they were great. Yeah,
so I was I learned a lot of stuff about videography and stuff, and sure, it's that was cool, but that all that did was that for 6 months, that was 20 hours a week of me not learning something that I could be thinking about now. So I learned how to make a video. That's great. But I think a lot of people, myself included, see, I could make a couple bucks doing this. I could make a couple bucks doing this. Oh, this is has some potential. And there's just a lack of focus. And you look at the people, you read the biographies of the guys that are at the top of their game. They do one thing. That's it. And they're comfortable with the discomfort of not having new stuff constantly pop up all the time. Yeah. And it's I spent a long time, even got into photography for a while, which is again, fun. And I learned some cool things. I was a creative outlet. That's great. Into videography. Okay. So I got a nice camera and I can I know how to change the settings on a camera. Okay. But there was a ton of time I spent where I was not focusing on one thing. And then I realized, I think it was a year and a half ago, I was you know what? I got to cut the photography. I got to cut the videography. I got to even cut a lot of the music stuff. It's you know what? I'm going to play music when it makes sense. And right now at this point, I'm called at this time. I believe at this time in my life, I'm focusing on this door is open right now. I'm going to sprint through that door. And then I'm going to keep sprinting until the door slams in my face, for good. Until I need to pivot and do something else. But at this point, it's one of the biggest mistakes I made was for a long time. I have 3 side hustles. It's a huge mistake. If you're not focused, you're never going to ultimately be valuable to anyone. You're not going to be able to serve people. And I think if it comes back to serving people and you're focusing on 4 things, you're focusing on nothing. And you're not going to be helpful to anyone because you're going to be mediocre at all of it. So if the goal is to help and to serve and to actually bring value, as people talk about, then you've got to be really, 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 really good at one thing. And it takes a lot of discipline, and it's not fun because it's boring. A lot of times it's really boring. And think about doing one thing for 5 years, in my mind. I'm thinking you know what? I want to keep doing this until I'm going to just nose to the grindstone, head down for 5 years. And then I want to look up and just kind of see where I am. And right now I don't know because I'm in the middle of that, but I've already seen it pay significant dividends, because if you know everything about one thing, you can help the people that need to know about that one thing.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I didn't do that. That was a mistake.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, you'd say something don't diversify, meaning the skills and talents and abilities that you have, don't put them in a bunch of different baskets. Go all in on one thing. So put all your eggs in on one basket. Don't diversify, because you're going to spread yourself. You'll be a mile wide and an inch deep. You won't make any real progress. You won't see the ultimately the harvest that you were hoping to see. Is that kind of how you'd phrase it, or how would you phrase it in a way that you'd be don't do
Have
this?
You heard Warren Buffett's quote on that? You nearly almost said it.
It might be floating around somewhere in my head. So, but yeah, do you know it?
He says that he thinks diversification and investment, and then generally in life, is a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
He said, I put all my eggs in one basket, and then I watch that basket.
Yeah. He knows exactly what he's looking to invest in. And yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting. I think it's so especially true of human nature. I wrestle with that, like, hey, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do that. I love learning new things. And it's the constant temptation of like, it's constantly pulling you away. And I even from other conversations I've had, on this podcast with business owners and entrepreneurs, the constant temptation and distraction from really good things, not bad things, really good things, but they're not the one thing. And until you say, I'm all in here, it means you're going to have to say no to a lot of really good things.
Great things, even.
Yeah. So that's huge. All right. Well, what
that's
else,
one
man?
thing I learned from you.
Oh, yeah.
You were the first person I think that introduced that whole concept. And maybe that was a quote you heard from someone. I have no idea. I'll give you full credit. That the good things are the worst enemy of the best things, or some. You phrased it some way, but I remember thinking that was just a really helpful paradigm for me because. You're a few years down the road from where, I am in years and children for that matter. But it's helpful to think, you know what? I may not be making like the wrong decision, but it may not be the best decision. And it may actually not ultimately like bring as much flourishing as could happen. Because it's not the best decision.
Yeah. I want to say, just giving credit where credit's due. I think it came from, I had a one-on-one meeting with a guy named David Platt. He's I guess somewhat of a well-known pastor and other things like that. But
is that from him? No way.
Yeah. So it was just some personal advice that he gave to me and said, like when we're making decisions in life, we're often tempted to think that, that it's between what's bad and what's good. But that's usually not the case. Those are usually pretty obvious, right? Really the harder decisions usually have to do with between what's better and what's best. And that we need so much wisdom and we need mental models. And that, funny enough, that's actually striking at the heart of this podcast, as I'm hoping that folks that are faced with various decisions, wherever they may be in their journey, might really identify with you or with somebody else, their story, and they can be helped in just getting one more perspective, one more vantage point that can help them to make that decision between what's better and what's best in their own lives, wherever that might be. So that's awesome, man. What else, man? Is there another failure or do you just have one?
Oh, there's a failure that dragged out for years because I was like pursuing 8 things constantly for like a long time. I like had like a wedding planning business. I like learned some stuff. I was like a photographer, learned some stuff. I was like a musician, sort of. I learned some stuff. And it's just like, dude, that was a long time. That was a lot of time of not getting better at anything meaningful. And that, I won't say it like set me back, but maybe it kind of did. Like from a mistake, this sounds so bad that I must sound like the most arrogant guy of all time. If that's something.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Skinner, only one mistake.
Oh gosh.
That's cool, man. That's a huge one. Like, and how you shared it. And like you said, it spans so much of your life that if that's the big takeaway, that's really important. That's good. So, if there's not something else that I'm sure when we get off the air, it'll come to mind or something like that. But
yeah, seriously.
Yeah. That there were several things.
I can think of specific mistakes that I've made. Like, today, like I ended up, I've been competing for a larger listing that I didn't get. And I learned a lot of lessons about like, it's kind of more like real estate stuff, but so there are a lot of like specific real estate lessons, like mistakes I've made specifically there. But as far as just general principle, maybe it's a little more of a vague question. That's why I'm struggling a little bit, but, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Is the long-term goal still to, you started out, you went to school, you studied theology, with kind of like the long-term goal to still be a pastor? Is that still a goal of yours? Are you seeing like real estate more as that long-term vehicle, or do you see yourself like doing
I'm seeing my life right now as I want to run through the open doors as fast as I possibly can. And right now, I'm involved in my church.
Yep.
And so there are some doors that are open there. I believe that it probably will happen at some point in my life. I don't know at what point. And as long as the business / real estate door is open, and right now it's kind of flung wide open, I'm going to be sprinting through that. Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, just generally, I think maybe the mistakes that I've made the biggest mistakes I've made are just decisions that I've made. I just started thinking about this 20 minutes ago. So I'm sure, as soon as we hang up, I'll think of 15 things, but just thinking from a short-term perspective and just not like making decisions, not thinking, oh, how is this decision? Like, how is this going to be affected in 10 years? Like, what would I make this decision if I'm thinking about having 0 results for 10 years? And I look at the decisions that I make that it's like, oh, well, this is easier right now. That usually has not ended well.
Yeah.
It's kind of vague, but I know for a fact there are examples. I just can't cite them right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, something like don't play the short game, right?
It's so easy because it's so alluring.
Yeah. Because it's like exactly what you just said. It has to do with ease. I'd say, well, or even just being too, well, I guess to riff off Lewis, too easily pleased, right? It's like, who wants to wait 30 years for wealth, right? Who wants to work at that? Like, who wants to take a job where they're not going to get anything unless they go and kill it, right? Like you what you kill. That's hard, but the rewards can be greater, right? And so it's having that sense of delayed gratification. And you're saying, don't play the short game. Don't just take the easy route. Go all in and do something worthwhile. And generally, what's worthwhile is going to be harder. Not all the time. There's times where it's like, hey, that was easy, right? But generally in life, the things that are worthwhile doing are not easy things. They're hard. Would you say that, or how would you talk? How would you say
That's great.
Yeah,
totally, 100%. People are scared of hard things. People are scared of unknown outcomes. The amount of people I talk to that like they talk a huge game, and they're like, "Oh, I could never do commission. What happens if you don't make any money?" I'm like, well, you just said all these things about how like you can't wait to buy 2 properties a year for the next 30 years, but you're scared that you wouldn't make enough in commission. Like, those things don't really line up as much as. So.
Yeah, you need money to buy the properties, or someone else's money, right? So
that's another conversation.
Yeah. If I were to fill in a blank on a third one, man, just from something you said earlier, and maybe it's not necessarily a mistake.
Dude, you've seen some pretty bad mistakes on me. You've known me for a while. You could come up with something.
No, well, I loved what you said about earlier, and we already riffed on it for a little bit, but I love the fact that you said, look, I've been selling pallets for 3 years, and you said something about making emotional decisions and extreme decisions, and what I loved was that you came to a point where you just manned up and you said, I'm going all in. I'm going to take this risk, right? Because the pain of rejection is worse than the pain of regret. Like, at the end of our lives,
is not worse than the pain of regret.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The pain of regret is worse than the pain of rejection.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. The pain of rejection is better than the pain of regret. And at the end of our lives, are we going to have these regrets of have not saying like, hey man, I did not use my gifts, my talents, and my abilities to the best of my capacity, when in a sense we have a moral obligation to be able to cultivate them as best as we can, to wield them in the world as best as we can for ourselves, for our families, for the world itself. And if we don't, we're actually robbing ourselves, our family, and the world. Right. And you came to a point in your life where it said like, look, I got to go. I got to risk it all. I'm going to go all in. And it was a calculated risk, right? And I think that's what good entrepreneurs do. And granted, you didn't start your own business here, but in a sense, we're all our own CEOs, right? You're the CEO of David Skinner & Co. And he said, it's time, right? I've had so much learning. It's good. And now the time is to go set sail. This ship was not meant for the harbor. It was meant to go conquer some waves and to go someplace. And I think that's awesome, man. So I don't know how I'd say that. And you didn't make the mistake of of being too afraid to do that. But other folks might be listening to this and be like, yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm afraid to make that move. I'm afraid to make that transition. So how would you maybe, counsel somebody and say, like, don't do this, like, don't discount yourself, or, don't
Dude,
waste your-
I could not have gotten to the place where I was if I didn't get to the place where I was. That would be a great tweet.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnottodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
Like, you can't convince, like, the amount of times I hear people tell other people to burn the ships. It's like, dude, you're not going to burn the ships if you aren't absolutely convinced to your core because of what you believe about the world and your life and your place in the world, that this is the only thing that can be done. Mm-hmm. If you're not at that point, it's not going to happen. You're not going to burn the ships if you don't believe in it. And like, the amount of times people are like talk about like trying to like quit addictions or like make big life changes. I'm like, dude, you don't want it bad enough. Like, but you can't force yourself. Like, I think honestly, like I've spent a lot of time going through some like just kind of crummy situations. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Some crummy situations that have just really forced me to honestly just like, start talking to God and say, all right, God, like, what do you want for me in my life? Like, where am I going? And as the fuzzier my picture of my life has been in my mind, the less risk I've taken, the more kind of the more I've pansied, around, played, ring around the mulberry bush. Because I couldn't make a decision because I wasn't convinced that where I needed to go was where I needed to go. But as my vision for my life has cleared, and I believe God has directed my steps and shown me, hey, this is the door that you're going towards, that has given me the confidence to say, all right, well, I'm not going to pursue some other alternative. So that's why, like, as far as like advising someone else, I'd say, well, if someone feels like they're not at the point where they can burn the ships, that doesn't tell me that they don't have courage. It tells me they don't have clarity.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't burn the ships if you don't believe in it. And
no one's going to anyway. Like, you don't have to tell anyone that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that idea of clarity is, crucial. Awesome. Good stuff, man. So then, a little bit of overlap here from what we were just riffing on, but, you have a young guy wants to be like David Skinner. How would you counsel him to get started going down your path, your journey, knowing that he's going to make all of his own mistakes and failures? But how would you counsel him to help avoid some of the ones that you made?
I tell him, first of all, he's making a mistake. If he wants to be like me, he's making a mistake.
Don't be like David Skinner. Don't do this.
Well, that was your first mistake, my friend. I'm confused about the question. What are you saying?
Yeah. How would you counsel someone to do something differently? Like when you look back on your own life, if given the chance, what would you do differently? Or again, if you were sitting down and giving advice to someone who was just starting out, or wanted to break into commercial real estate, et cetera, how would you counsel them to go about things differently than you did?
No, yeah, it's so tough, dude. I look back and I'm like, how was I, like, what was I thinking? Like, how did I think this was going to make sense? Like, I look back and I'm like, dude, I was like, 3 years ago, by the grace of God, I'm not who I was 3 years ago. But it's like, I would say get ready for living on a budget for a long time. I would say get ready for long hours many days at 9 p.m. in the office when no one else is there. You're sending out emails to people who won't return your call, you're working on projects, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. People, someone says, oh, hey, we have this listing. You need to come work on finding a buyer for this. And you're running around like a madman, and you have, 2 months of 200 calls you've made and 0 results. That is par for the course. That's not like above or below. That's just like what to expect. I think a lot of people come in expecting a lot more, a lot sooner than they should. But if you can get over that and you're okay making no money for 2 years, and then after 2 years you make a couple bucks, and you still are able to grind, then you'll probably do pretty good.
Yeah. Awesome.
I was at a point when I moved out here that I didn't really have like a job to go back to. Like I couldn't go work for the pallet company. Like it had to work. Like there was no, like it had to work. Or I'd have to go start working. I'd have to go like valet cars or something. Like that was it. I didn't want to be a professional valet. So, I would just tell people like have very low expectations for a very long time.
Yeah.
And keep working and like think 10 years down the road. Eventually enough people will quit, and then you'll be left and you'll be like, oh wow. You'll look around and you'll be like, oh, this is actually kind of good.
You just have to outwork and outlast the people next to you. And honestly, sometimes it's not that hard. Sometimes it's just about being 1% better, right? Or holding on for, 1 minute longer. But it's often more than that. And so you don't want to take, you don't want to be a reductionist and just say, well, what's the least I can do to get by? You're saying just get ready to go all in, get ready to be structured, be an adult, take ownership of everything, which is a lot of work. When you take ownership for your life and everything in it, that's a lot of work. And it's not, you're not going to even get that right overnight. Right. But that decision, that mindset to take full ownership is a starting point. And that's,
I don't know if it's a Grant Cardoneism where he says, nothing in life happens to me. Everything happens in life because of me.
Yeah.
And if you take that approach of like, even today, like when I lost this listing and I felt like I got used by this guy for the last year, I was like tempted to get kind of like bitter about it. And I thought, you know what? I did this to myself. I let myself be used, and I didn't treat myself with enough respect with this guy. Professional courtesy, but I was like, it's just a totally different. It's like, oh, this guy screwed me, used me, all this. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to learn anything that way, because if it's everyone else's problem, you're never going to learn. And I had one of the other guys in the office. I was just like, dude, I'm really discouraged. Like, this is literally today. And he goes, you know what? Take full responsibility. You did this to yourself. However, the guy's a little bit of a scumbag. But that being said, like, there are a few things you did well here, and there are a few things you really shouldn't do again. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn this lesson. And that was a year of my life that I spent that I didn't waste, because I'm learning what to not do. And I'm going to move on, and I'm going to be wiser for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's so huge. One of my favorite quotes is, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. So even in this situation, how you're reacting is saying, great, where did I go wrong? Where can I take even more ownership next time? And that alone can chart the course for your life. The other thing would be, even with having, like an abundance or like a scarcity type of mindset, right? Like, who knows how this situation that is a perceived failure, a perceived blunder, a perceived lost deal might come back to bless you. You don't know, right? And so by keeping optimistic about it, by, in this sense, taking what you can learn from it, taking full ownership, who knows, right? And I just think that's a cool thing. And especially when you have that idea of just wanting to give to others, how can you give to this guy that apparently just, screwed you over, whatever it is.
That's right.
When we have that mindset, we take that every day with us. It's not easy, right? That no one's saying that that's like an easy thing to do, but that is a good example of how we are in charge of how we react to things, and how we can proactively go after things in life.
That's right.
That's awesome, man. Cool. So home stretch here. We've got our gauntlet. 3 questions for you. Life is, we go through life and we are just inescapably influenced by so many things, probably things that we're not even aware of. And things that we are very well aware of. They can be positive things, they can be negative things, right? We've had people on the shows that have been told at a young age that they would never be anything in life. Can you imagine that? And that, that word which was spoken to them was the thing that actually drove them to make the most of life. It was so awesome. We've had folks that have been very, had great, parents or teachers or mentors or coaches or whatever might be along the way. It's been awesome. So I'm curious, in David Skinner's life, when you think about who you are today, and you think about your success and your journey and your vision for everything, like, and I think for all of us, there's probably several different people, but who's someone that sticks out, like, as far as like your formation, that you couldn't, that you wouldn't be where you are today without them?
The guy that gave me a chance at the pallet company. I had a conversation with him in his living room. I was in my junior year of college, end of the junior year, in my junior year, and just was over hanging out. Dale's dad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if did you ever meet him?
Maybe once upon a time.
Yeah. He, I was just at his house out in Stillwater, and we were just talking. It was like a spring day or something. We were talking about business or whatever, and then a month or two later, he was like, "Hey, I've got sales guys leaving. We need someone else." And I was just like, "Man, this guy is giving me a chance." Like, I was so incredibly honored by that. And he and I had many conflicts because we were both strong-willed people. But the amount of times that I would just go into his office or he would come up into my office, ask me what I'm working on, what deals I'm doing, or whatever, and it was just incredibly. I was just really encouraged. And he believed in me when he had zero reason to. That was like incredibly affirming, and I always knew I could talk to him if I needed. But honestly, just having someone come in and say that they believed in me was so important. Then the guy that ended up hiring me, at the company that I'm with right now, Dave Stubblebine, I'll name him out. We were at 10X, the second one. This was 3 years ago. I remember I was getting dinner with him and a couple of other people. And during the dinner, he was like, "Hey, just so you know," he helped out with my ticket because I was in the phase I had made no money. And he's like, "Hey, he wanted me to go to the conference with him and paid for some of it." He's like, I just so you know, like I paid that for you because I think you're going to be successful and I really believe in you. And now I thought that was a lot of money back then. And now I realized it wasn't that much, a couple $100. I was like, well, it was very generous, but still the fact that he helped me out and then just said, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I see the work you're putting in. I've been doing this for a long time. I believe that you're going to be really successful. Keep doing what you're doing." It was like moments like that just have lasted for a long time. And it's also encouraged me to, when I have the opportunity to say the same thing to someone else who not making it up, obviously, if I don't think they're going to go anywhere, I probably don't tell them. But for the people that really see that they could go somewhere, I want to affirm it and just say, "Dude, I really believe in you."
Yeah.
That is just really affirming. It's a really affirming thing.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. It actually reminded me of that Super Bowl commercial where Pinocchio was the motivational speaker. And he was like, "You'll be successful. You'll be something in life." But no, in all seriousness, man, like what a gift. You know what I'm saying? Like, what a gift. Like the first thing for someone to come along and take a risk on you, like you said, an investment, and how much you learn in those 3 years and how that sets you up for them for this. And then so Dave comes along, does the same thing. And for him, a couple $100, yeah, probably not a lot of money, right? And in your perspective, you're looking back, not a lot of money. But it was so much more than just about the money, right? He was giving you a gift so much greater than a plane ticket, right? And he was in a sense, breathing life into you so you can go do bigger, better things. That just idea of someone else is for us and believes in us, just amazing. What a gift.
Dude, it's really empowering.
It's awesome. All right, man, not the best, but what's the worst? And I'm a little bit hesitant to ask this question because I think I've probably at one point given you a lot of really bad advice in life. So maybe I'm going to make the list here, but what's some of the worst advice you either hear floating around these days, or that you've been given at some point along your way in your journey?
The amount of dating advice that you and I have discussed.
Which is why you're still single, right? Or not married or anything.
You know what? I take full responsibility, but it was your fault.
Yeah. Don't come to Kyle for dating advice. Right?
That's right. Worst advice I've heard or I've been given?
It could be either. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a horrible advice to tell people that I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, you should have a side hustle." I think that's terrible advice.
Yeah.
pick one thing that you want to focus on. Pick something that you believe you can give yourself to. I mean, I've heard from my married friends that this is the way you have a successful marriage is you find a person you can commit to and then you commit to them. I don't know if you would agree or disagree with that as a married person. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I agree. I mean, you say yes to one thing, you say no to everything else.
Everything else.
So I guess if you wanted to extend the metaphor, to your point, having a side hustle, that's like saying like yes to two women, right? You're gonna covenant with both of them. You're in marriage with, and I know some folks are all.
Some people do that, but honestly, those relationships, like
that's
guys
tough.
that are just like bouncing around, they're not fulfilled. It's like, that's not an actually rewarding situation.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
And you look at people that are like, oh, I'm going to work 40 hours doing this. I know a guy right now who's a broker right now. If I post this on LinkedIn, he may listen, so I'm going to be careful. But I mean, honestly, it's a mistake. It's like he works. Yeah. He does work hard, but he puts in 40 hours a week. And he's also got like a business he's trying to start that he spends a lot of time doing. I'm like, dude, you are seriously cutting yourself short. It's like a very basic principle of don't do two things. Like, do one thing really well.
Yep.
Because otherwise, like, who are you helping? Like, no one's going to want to talk to you if you're like mediocre at two things.
Mm-hmm.
I think a side hustle is a bad idea.
Yeah. And so to your point, if you find yourself in a position or role or job or now, like where you say like, I don't really enjoy it, I'm not really good at it, or wherever it might be. So go find something different. Go find something that you do enjoy, that you're good at, and that you can hopefully have the highest ceiling of making and building wealth. Right. And then go all in on that. Because if you do a side hustle, you're necessarily pulling in two different directions, unless for some reason, maybe the side hustle is like an overflow of what you're already doing. And it's a way to spin out and to become your own boss or build your own company. I could see a transition from there, but I hear what you're saying, man. And that's a common advice. Like, you go on Instagram, everyone's a hustler, right? Everyone's an entrepreneur. Everyone's everything. And the amount of,
honestly, I haven't been on Instagram. I got off Instagram. I'm done. Like, and it has been so nice to not be honest.
A lot of the advice floating around, it's like, it's interesting. So yeah, that's good, man. And it comes back to like exactly what you're saying. Don't diversify, right? Not even two things, just one.
So one focus and of one mind, dude.
Yep.
Set your eyes in one place and run 100% in that direction.
What
do you know? You'll become pretty good in a short period of time.
Have you read Gary Keller's book, The One Thing?
I have heard of it. I've heard him interviewed on it. I've never read it.
Yeah, you throw it on your list, man. It's a good book. You'd love it. Last but not least, it's rush hour in Boston. It's rush hour in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's rush hour in every
Green Bay
city.
Doesn't have rush hour.
You're right. We don't. all five cars, right?
That's right.
But every major city in the world, man, major traffic jams. They're all listening to, David Skinner episode on what not to do. And wouldn't you know it, they look up and they see a billboard, and it's David Skinner's billboard. What message do they see? What message do you want the world to see?
I think we're going to talk about books quickly, right?
Yeah, after.
So I would say this is directly tied to one of the books is, maybe this would make a good segue. I would just say that if Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the whole principle of that book is something that the older I get, the more I don't think there's anything else that I could tell anyone that's worth talking about. Is internal leadership has to come before external leadership. If you don't know what you're doing on this earth, if all you want to do is make money, if all you want to do is just get rich, build wealth, that's it. That's the whole point of what you're trying to do. You are not going to lead people. You're not going to ultimately like be able to deal with like the recessions when you lose everything and like you buy investment properties that then go under. Like you're not going to be able to deal with that because your purpose, your internal purpose is not deep enough. And I would say, I could just say the reason why like I've put up with like I've been able to not put up with, but move through really challenging situations at times has been because I know what I'm doing it for. Like there's a reason why there's a deep purpose in my heart, in my spirit, in my soul. I believe that is like very much integrally that drives everything else. And if that's not there, like you're not going to lead people and you're not going to have results. I'm sure if I was trying to, I'd love to condense that to a billboard. You're better at condensing things. So maybe I'm sure you could turn it into something interesting, but I just think having a purpose that drives you from inside, if you don't have, is what needs to happen. And if you don't have that, then you should spend a lot of time like figuring out what that is. Like, why do you do what you do? Why are you excited? Why do you want to make money? Why do you care? And then everything falls into place because then you're not just sitting there trying to impress everyone. You're not trying to just, get a new car or whatever.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think you said it best. I mean, you basically said lead yourself, right? And assuming you lead yourself, you're naturally going to be able to lead others. But if you can't lead yourself, then you're not going to be able to lead others, right? And so maybe it's as simple as that, just that idea of what you said from, 7 Habits. Got to lead yourself. That's the first place. It's the starting place for everybody in life.
That's right. Right.
That's good, man. All right. Bonus round. Give me your books. 3 books. They don't have to be your favorites, but 3 books, man, that you think everyone should have on their bookshelf.
7 Habits, dude. I'm reading it for a second time right now. And it is just like, it's seriously life-changing. I'm scribbling all over these margins of this book. I'm looking at my bookshelf and I don't. Al Mohler, president of Southern Baptist Seminary, has a book on it's his book on leadership. What he talks about is it leading from conviction or something like that?
Yeah, I've got it. The Conviction to Lead.
Conviction to Lead. That is a top 3 book that I have. I mean, it's a lot of similar concepts. If you can't lead yourself, you're not going to lead anyone else. And he approaches leadership from a totally others, but how are you going to most effectively lead people to where they need to go? Yeah. Not where they want to go, but where they need to go. And how do you actually move people in that direction? I don't know, like, what else are we doing in our lives if we're not trying to like help people go where they need to go? Like, what else are we doing? Yeah.
Awesome.
And How to Win Friends and Influence People is a classic, but it teaches you. Yeah, dude, I would say those are top 3. Maybe there's a couple others that are shifty, but like you could shift in and out of the top 3. But like How to Win Friends and Influence People is all about how do you interact with people in a way on their terms? How do you put yourself on the back burner and engage with people I could put like biblical words into it. Like, how do you, in a loving way, in a compassionate way, how do you engage with someone on their terms? How do you serve them most effectively? You like stuff like you never say I'm bad at names. You learn their name. Everyone's bad at names. Everyone could be amazing at names if you try. Like things like that. Like those are just like some of the best. Like you have a good handshake. You remember people's names. You look at them in the eye. Like that's actually a way of expressing honor, respect, and love to a person. He talks about that in that book, and it's just like very overlooked, I think, nowadays. But
that's awesome, man. So I've never read the first or the third one, so I need to get after it. Like they've been on my reading list, and I just haven't done it. So I need to get these books.
Let's go, dude. You definitely should.
Awesome, man. Well, brother, this has been awesome. I've learned from you in this conversation, and I'm excited. I might never know who gets impacted by these things, whose life gets changed and turned upside down because of these things. But I believe that happens. And I'm really thankful, man, that you just opened up. You're willing to lean into some failures, share your story, your success, and hopefully give others just some sound wisdom moving forward, to not waste what they've been given, what they have, and to go all in on something, to get clear on that. And that's awesome. If you're listening right now and you've been really impacted by this, connect with David and let him know. Let me know. That'd be huge. David, if folks wanted to connect with you, how can they find you?
So the platform that we were talking about with the videos is the CREcoach.com, commercial real estate coach, the CREcoach.com. And then my email is just david@thecrecoach.com.
Awesome. Beautiful. And you're on LinkedIn too?
David's, yeah.
That's right there. Awesome. Yeah, good stuff, man. Well, hey, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for your time, brother. Really appreciate it.
Good. Have a great night.
Yeah, likewise.
See ya.
Man, I love David Skinner. I could talk to him for hours. Miss him. He's out on the East Coast, but just a great guy, and really exciting to see him having the success that he has. And still early. He's got a lot of chapters left to write, so cheer on David with me. All right, let's recap what he told us not to do. First, he said, don't diversify. Don't diversify. Now, this kind of flows in the face of conventional wisdom, but I think you get David's point. By diversifying, you are spreading yourself a mile wide and an inch deep, and you're never really making much progress digging, right? So it'd be better just to dig in one spot and dig deep, right? It'd be better to chop down a tree and chop in one spot and keep hitting that spot over and over and over, versus, a chop here, chop there, kind of all over the base of the tree. It's going to take a lot longer for that tree to come down, if it ever does come down. So don't diversify the way that you are investing your time and your skills, your talents, etc. Go all in on one thing. Don't play the short game. Don't play the short game. It's a temptation. We want the immediate gratification. We don't want to think about the ripple effect, the long-term consequences. We might know that they might not be good, and so we just don't want to face up to them or face them altogether. We just rather just pretend I can do whatever I want. YOLO, you only live once, right? But we know that's a short-term strategy. And if you didn't know that before, now you do. No excuses. So don't play the short game. Play the long game. Know that there's going to be the delayed gratification. There's going to be the sacrifice up front. And but real reward in the end. I mean, one of my mentors in life in a previous season told me a story about when they first got married. They bought a bedroom set, a really nice bedroom set, but they didn't have living room furniture in their house for 5 years. 5 years, no living room furniture. Why? Well, because he was starting his own business, and they were creating a chasm between their expenses and their income, and reinvesting the difference into the business. And now they have, a beautiful home on lakefront property, very well furnished, very much the envy of anyone, that would see that or is saying that, just a beautiful home on several acres. And it's really, really nice. So you can see they've done well for themselves, but it wasn't always that way. He tells the story of them eating mac and cheese and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? That type of stuff. And how many of us are willing to make some of those decisions so we can create that surplus for long-term benefits when it comes to finances. But then that principle carries over to life in general, right? Where do we want to be in 30, 50 years? And are the decisions that we're making today going to help us get there? Or are they keeping us from getting there? Last but not least, don't burn the ships if you don't believe in it. Don't burn the ships if you don't believe in it. So basically saying you're not really going to truly go all in if you don't really believe in what you're doing, right? And so this is really important, a common theme throughout the conversations, but know what you want in life. Know what your great purpose is, and then align yourself with work that is going to be going after that purpose, right? And that could be a handful of different things. It could be some different work opportunities. It's not like there's just one magical thing, but the clearer that you can get on what you want and where you're going for and the values of how you're going to go about doing that, you're going to find that what. So get clear on the why, know the how and values, and you're going to get really, really clear on that what. A great book on that is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for listening. This podcast it's about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. We've been getting such good feedback, both from guests and listeners and potential sponsors. It's really, really encouraging to me, and mainly because it has nothing to do with Kyle. It has everything to do with you and brokering this conversation between folks that have had success, but they've been in the trenches. They're willing to share those failures so that you guys don't have to reinvent the wheel. You're going to have plenty of your own mistakes, but this is going to give you an edge, a leg up, a head start in so many ways. And I hope it also it maybe inspires you or causes you to think bigger. Maybe realize that your goals or your dreams are maybe too small and you need to double, triple, 10x those goals. I hope these stories come as a source of inspiration for you, even in the face of failure, to not view it as a foe, but a friend, a teacher, a coach, a trainer, a mentor, to bring you to a place of maturity in life, which is really, really exciting to me. So I would love all the more to hear that kind of feedback. If that's true for you, if that's happening in your life, please share it with friends if it is. A great way you can do that is by giving us an honest and thoughtful 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you do listen. And if you are a company, if you own a business and you think that your message would be really relevant for entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring to be such, connect with me. Reach out, let's sit down and consider what partnering together would look like here to help equip the world for success. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.